Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Pro Nerd Sports channel. A lot coming up this week, very exciting week 18. It was kind of like a Thanos snap last week. Half the teams were in playoff contention, now only a select few are in it. And, last week of the regular season, I have to say this has been one of my favorite NFL seasons, mainly because the Detroit Lions won the division, won the NFC North for the first time in 30 years. First time ever, really. And it's exciting. There's a lot of odd, weird things that a lot of people didn't expect to happen. And so I'm excited for the playoffs. I really am. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting developments going on and a lot of probably upset wins. So this Super Bowl will be interesting. I'm ready for it to start. Without further ado, let's get into my Week 18 power rankings. All right, here, starting off at 32nd, none other than the Carolina Panthers. They were shut out against a Jacksonville Jaguars team that did not have Trevor Lawrence, losing by 29, I believe. Nothing surprising there. 31st, the Washington Commanders. Okay, the Commanders played the 49ers and lost, like many people probably expected. They lost by 17. Again, started off the season kind of good. They started off 2-0. Have since fallen off tremendously. Definitely the second worst team in the league. 30th at the New York Jets. A lot of people are much higher on the Jets than I am. They did have that one massive win against the Houston Texans a few weeks ago. Yet that was without C.J. Stroud. I don't know. Jets are the least efficient offense, and I know a lot of that is because of Aaron Rodgers and the offensive line getting hurt. So it sucks for the Jets fans that they had all those injuries offensively. Defense is still great. 30 might be a little bit harsh, but honestly, I think there are plenty of teams better than them. Moving forward, 29th, the Los Angeles Chargers. The Easton Stick era hasn't been great at all. They've looked very bad, but they put up a tough fight against Buffalo, but they did lose to Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos last week. Nothing too crazy there. 29th for the Los Angeles Chargers. 28th, the New England Patriots. Again, a very disappointing year for the New England Patriots, although they are starting to squeeze out some wins that a lot of people didn't expect them to get against the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Patriots are starting to come around a little bit. Still, I don't think they're a very good football team, although they did hang on with the Bills for a little bit. Still, I don't think they're that great of a football team. 27th, the Tennessee Titans. This team has flashes of being good. They had that win against Miami Dolphins a few weeks ago. Have since, again, fallen off like they tend to do. I still think Mike Vrabel is a great coach. Who did they lose to? They lost to the Houston Texans. It was not close or pretty. C.J. Stroud is back in full force. 27th, the Tennessee Titans. 26th, the New York Giants, who kept it very, very close against the Los Angeles Rams, who I had ranked second previously. A little bit disappointing for the Rams. Huge for the New York Giants. This team still shows a lot of promise defensively. Really could have won that game. Mason Crosby missed that long game-winning field goal, and there's definitely some things the Giants could have done offensively to move that field goal closer, but shout out to them for even getting to that point to begin with, because a lot of people, including myself, wrote them off for that game. So 26th, the New York Giants. 25th, the Arizona Cardinals. This team just pulled up a massive upset win against the Philadelphia Eagles. I do not know how they do it, but Kyler Murray is starting to stick around, making a claim that he should still be the Arizona Cardinals starting quarterback headed into next season. Didn't start off the game great, but ended fantastically. That's a word. But yeah, great win for the Arizona Cardinals. Definitely better than a lot of people think. 25th might even be too low for them, but we'll see what happens. 24th, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, yes, this is a playoff team. This team is currently in the playoff picture. They are one of the most overrated teams in the NFL. I can confidently say that. They are one of the most overrated teams in the NFL. This team just a few weeks ago got blown out by the Atlanta Falcons. Their offense without, Anthony Richardson, they're just too inconsistent. And they're same thing with their defense. Their defense has not been looking good in the slightest. So 24th, the Indianapolis Colts really don't have a lot of good wins either. So before you come at me saying, hey, this team is in the playoffs, they are good, they have a winning record, take a look at their wins. A lot of them aren't that flashy. They have some pretty bad losses too. So 24th, Indianapolis Colts. 23rd, Atlanta Falcons, just mentioned they had a terrible game. Not a great game. A terrible game against the Chicago Bears after blowing out the Colts in the week prior. This team does have potential to be very good. I know a lot of Atlanta fans are hoping that Arthur Smith is gone at the end of the season, and honestly, that might shoot their ranking up, but for this season, the Falcons are playing exactly how I expected them to. Moving on. 22nd, the Denver Broncos. 22nd, the Denver Broncos. Now, a few weeks ago, I did not think I would have this team this low, but they have been disappointing, to say the least. They lost. They got destroyed by the Detroit Lions, a team that at the moment wasn't very hot. And then they lost at home to the New England Patriots. So don't really know how we feel about the Denver Broncos. They also benched potentially a Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson for Jarrett Stidham over contractual agreements. And now it seems that Russell Wilson won't be on the team next year, which is crazy to think about because this season he's been playing great. I do not think he was at fault for any of the losses for the Broncos. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. But with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, I'm keeping the Denver Broncos at 22nd. 21st, Cincinnati Bengals. Might be a little bit low, but this team's starting to fall off a little bit. They had that huge blowout loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Almost beat the Chiefs, so there's an argument to be made that this team can be much higher, but I really don't trust their defense, and I think the Jake Browning effect is starting to wear off a little bit. Just not consistent enough offensively and defensively. So 21st, the Cincinnati Bengals. 20th, the Las Vegas Raiders, another inconsistent team. It seems like every couple weeks this team is really good, and then they shoot to the bottom of the NFL and how good they are. This team doesn't really know where they stand, but they did just beat the Kansas City Chiefs a few weeks ago, lost barely to the Indianapolis Colts last week. 20th, I think, is a fair spot for the Las Vegas Raiders. 19th, the Minnesota Vikings, a team that just got blown out by the Green Bay Packers at home, keeping the Packers' playoff hopes alive, and in essence, not mathematically, but in essence, eliminating the Minnesota Vikings from playoffs. They can still get in, but they need a lot of help, and they also got to beat the Detroit Lions in Detroit Week 18. Could happen, but you never know. This team is better than people think. I know that loss last week looks bad, but they still have Justin Jefferson. Brian Flores has this defense playing amazing, with an exception from last week. So I still think the Minnesota Vikings are a good-ish team, but they are definitely not one of the best in the NFL. 18th, the Chicago Bears. This team is finally starting to come along. I thought they'd be much better this season. They're starting to finally play how I expected them to play. However, the way they started the season has eliminated them from playoff contentions. And the Bears are in a sticky situation now because we don't know who's going to be their quarterback next year. Bears fans want Justin Fields. Justin Fields is finally playing consistently well. The key word there, consistently. Granted, they did play the Atlanta Falcons, who have a good defense but are not a very good football team in general. 18th for the Chicago Bears. I think that's a very fair ranking for them. 17th, the Green Bay Packers, whose playoff hopes were kept alive on Sunday, weeks prior, losing to the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and nearly losing to the Carolina Panthers. Many have written this team off, including myself, and they're finally, with a statement win at Minnesota, are making a claim for the playoffs. They just have to beat the Chicago Bears in Green Bay in Week 18, and knowing the Green Bay Packers against the Chicago Bears, I expect them to win that game and make the playoffs. Whether that be the 6th or 7th seed, who knows? Depends on what the Rams do. If the 49ers bench players, who knows? But Green Bay Packers could definitely be a playoff team. Jordan Love is playing very well. And let's see what they do Week 18. Still got to beat the Chicago Bears, and that's not an easy one. That's not a write-off. That is a very tough opponent to face last week of the season. 16th, top half of the league, the Seattle Seahawks. This has been a team I've been high on all season, and once again, they have that loss that makes me question how good this team really is. I do think they are much better than 16th, but they have not been showing it as of recently. Nearly losing to the Tennessee Titans, losing against Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers to keep Mike Tomlin's winning record streak alive. It's a messy situation for Seattle. I think they should have won out, and now they need the Green Bay Packers to lose and a bunch of other people to lose for them to get into the playoffs. They have to beat the Arizona Cardinals, which again at this point in the season isn't a gimme. As you look, last week the Arizona Cardinals just beat the Philadelphia Eagles, so I wouldn't be shocked if the Arizona Cardinals pull off the upset in that game. Moving on to 15th, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team, despite losing back-to-back games against teams with two wins, the Arizona Cardinals and the New England Patriots. Both of those teams are looking slightly better now, but with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, this is a completely different team. They are winning. They're on a 2-game win streak, looking to go on a third. They are playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they are probably going to be resting their players in Week 18. Pittsburgh Steelers last couple of weeks, especially against that win at home against Cincinnati, have been looking very good. Keep them at 15th. Moving on to 14th, the New Orleans Saints. Now, this might be a little bit high, but they had a great win on Sunday against division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers, keeping their playoff hopes alive. Saints could still get in at a wild card, or they could win the NFC South. Both are very realistic situations, but it's also very easy. They could also very easily miss the playoffs. Baker Mayfield a little bit shaken up in that game. Maybe they lose to the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons to get into the playoffs. I don't know, but the defense played phenomenally on Sunday. Again, this is another one of those inconsistent teams that I'm like, okay, how good is this team actually this late in the season? And we still don't know. Moving on to 13th, I have the Houston Texans. Great win against the Tennessee Titans for the Houston Texans. This team keeping its playoff hopes alive. Just need to get one more win against the Indianapolis Colts. The winner of that game will go to the playoffs in Indianapolis, so it's going to be a tough one for Houston. They beat them earlier in the season, so I do think the Houston Texans are a better team than the Indianapolis Colts, but I will not be shocked to see the Texans miss the playoffs and the Colts get in. Divisional matchups, especially one in which the winner is in. If they tie, they might both be out, I think, unless the Steelers lose. A lot could happen. I'm moving on to 12th. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the best team in the AFC South, in my opinion. Bad couple of weeks, last couple of weeks, but their defense played phenomenally against, it's the Bryce Young-led Panthers team. Not the greatest team. Defense played well, though. C.J. Beathard played goodish, as well as he needed to do. Travis Etienne's finally getting more involved in that offense. Hopefully, they can carry this momentum into the playoffs. I don't even know if they have officially clinched either. Moving on to 11th, I still have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who blew out the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. They lost against the New Orleans Saints, lost a good opportunity to clinch the NFC South. I still think this is the best team, although you can make arguments that the New Orleans Saints now are the best team in the NFC South. That whole division is still up in the air. Hell, the Atlanta Falcons could still win it. I'm going to keep the Buccaneers at 11th, though. Hopefully they turn it around. Baker Mayfield was shaken up in that game. They got a date with the Carolina Panthers, a win, and they're in situation for them. Moving on to the top 10, Miami Dolphins at 10. And a lot of people are going to hate on this, but I don't think the Miami Dolphins are nearly as good as many people think. Their offense is fantastic, but defensively, I have my concerns. And they were embarrassed on Sunday by the Baltimore Ravens. In the beginning, it looked like Miami had most of the momentum. Then it all just fell into the Ravens' hands, and they have been consistently smashing people. So 10th are the Miami Dolphins, really because earlier in the season they lost to teams like the Kansas City Chiefs on the neutral field. Again, the Chiefs, we know, aren't looking like themselves. They have clinched the playoffs. Don't know how far they will go in the playoffs. They obviously need a better receiver. Really, just that's the only key thing I think they're missing. There might be some shakiness on the offensive line, but the Chiefs have really not looked the same. Almost lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, but for now I'll keep them at 10. They're back in the top 10. Last week I did not have them in the top 10, so good job, Kansas City Chiefs, on making it back into the top 10. At 8th, I have the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that just lost to the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not going to get too carried away, although I am now very concerned for the Eagles when they do get into the playoffs. That might be a team that's going to be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the New Orleans Saints. They are hitting a dip at the wrong time of the season. Very scared for the Philadelphia Eagles. Defense been looking atrocious, and offense they can't rely on their offense to win them all of their games. I wouldn't be shocked if the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the New York Giants on Sunday. So we'll see what happens. 7th, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I had this team second last week because they're the only team that I've seen that was able to compete with the Baltimore Ravens. Since then, they almost lost to the New York Giants, so I tampered my expectations a little bit. I was probably a little bit overhyped. I thought the Rams were going to go to the Super Bowl for a little bit. But still a very good team. I think they're better than the Philadelphia Eagles despite losing to them earlier in the season. With Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyren Williams all on the field at the same time, this team seems pretty unstoppable. So 7th, the Los Angeles Rams. 6th, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Look, many you guys probably know I'm a Detroit Lions fan. And say what you want about the way we lost last week. Was it rigged? No. Did the referees make a very, very crucial mistake? Yes. Either way, sure, the Detroit Lions lost the game, but on the road in Dallas, a place where nobody except really Seattle has been able to compete at all this season, they should have come away with the win. So I'm going to give the Detroit Lions the edge there. I'm going to say that because Detroit was able to compete with the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, that if they were to play on a neutral field, I think the Lions would win that game. Moving the Lions into the top 5, this team is looking very sharp going into the playoffs. Dan Campbell looks like he knows what he's doing. Jared Goff is very confident in his team. The whole team's very confident. They have that kind of moxie to them, and they're getting plenty of players back for the playoffs, C.J. Gardner-Johnson being one of the main ones. Now, moving on to 4th, the Buffalo Bills. It's kind of crazy. I have the Buffalo Bills ranked 4th. Even though there is still a chance that this team might miss the playoffs, I think there's a very realistic situation, too, where this team misses the playoffs. All they need is the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat a Baltimore Ravens team that has nothing to play for, and they have to play the Miami Dolphins, a division rival, on the road. Bills handled the Miami Dolphins earlier in the season, so wouldn't be shocked if the Buffalo Bills win that game and win the division. And then by that logic, they'll be the 2 seed in the AFC, which will make a lot more sense. But given the struggles that the Buffalo Bills had earlier in the season, and remember, they dropped as low as 19th in my power rankings. They are 4th right now. Moving on to 3rd, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are the only team in the AFC that have been able to compete with the Baltimore Ravens, and and the Baltimore Ravens are going to lose to anybody in the playoffs. It is going to be the Cleveland Browns. If they play each other, and I think there's a good shot the Browns win. If the Ravens never have to play the Browns, there's a fat chance that the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl. So 3rd, Cleveland Browns. 2nd, the best team in the NFC by far, the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, they got blown out by the Baltimore Ravens a couple weeks ago. Trent Williams on the sideline. I think as long as he stays healthy, this team will be a Super Bowl contender. That's a big question mark, though, because without Trent Williams on the field, Brock Purdy looks like a completely different person. That game against the Ravens completely murdered his MVP hopes, but did get a big win against the Washington Commanders on Sunday. Now, the best team in the NFL, as we all know, as many people probably expected going into this, the Baltimore Ravens. They are just a dominant team. They have 3 losses, 1 early in the year to the Indianapolis Colts, 1 to the Cleveland Browns, and 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both those teams, big division rivals, and the Steelers one happened way early in the season, and they lost to the Browns by blowing a multiple score lead. So really, this Baltimore Ravens team realistically could have been undefeated at this point. They are by far the best team in the NFL. Again, I think the only team that can stop them is the Cleveland Browns. But besides that, I think the Ravens have one of the easiest paths to the Super Bowl. as far as they are so much better than everybody else. The defense is playing great. Offense is playing great. Lamar Jackson is probably going to be your MVP. And that's going to conclude my NFL Power Rankings for Week 18, the final week of the regular season. Whew. It's coming to an end this week. I have enjoyed this ride so much. Thank you for sticking with Pro Nerd Sports throughout this whole season. It's very first football season in existence. I appreciate anybody that watches the video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. See you in the next one. Goodbye.